All right, looks like we're live. Hi, everybody.
Hello, everyone.
What's the good word? If you could just do us a super duper quick favor and just let us know that you can hear and see us. I see, I don't know if it's Sarah or Sarah, Lisa, CJ. We got Aloys. What's up, buddy? Yep, cool. All right, Tony's here. Very good. All right, so if you're here,
Elon transformed.
Elon has transformed into a beautiful woman. He's also trying on this pregnancy thing just for a limited time. Yeah, obviously, if you're here the first time with us, let us know. So we'll give you a little context. If you were not here the first time, then you probably also need context. This is Mandy. Elon is celebrating the holidays with his family. Today is actually a really holy day for Jews, so it's Yom Kippur. I'm not, so I'll be a bad Jew for the day. And Mandy, if you guys don't know Mandy, I'll let her introduce herself in just a second. But Mandy's actually, as of very recent, my fiance. As of a few days ago, she's been my girlfriend for a bit of time. Rocks. So Mandy's been working with us for a long time, but more than just credentials of working for us. Mandy's been in practice of meditation since she was 9 years old, which is just about longer than anybody else I know. Has been steeped in the world of personal development and personal transformation and the like. So she's an absolute powerhouse and somebody that even in our local community, a lot of people come to for guidance and for just help and all sorts of things. And she's always willing. So since Elon wasn't here, I thought she might step in and play a little bit of a bigger role. And here she is.
Awesome.
Yeah. You may be noticing the belly rubs on top of the engagement, and actually both of our birthdays being within 10 days of each other. Hers was yesterday. She just turned 32. I just turned 35. We also have a little babe. Almost 8 months. Little babe on the way. Jade and Sky, who's supposed to make an appearance later in November. So. We're hoping he's a holdout till the end. All right, so we're gonna let everyone get on here. Guys, thank you for the well wishes. We have had so much to celebrate recently. It's like a bit overwhelming, and we also have a different setup than normal because we're together. So we're gonna make this super informal. If this is your first time here, besides the fact that you just learned all about our personal lives, which is awesome because coaching is certainly personal. These webinars have traditionally been here as an avenue for you guys, whoever's here. We assume that if you're here, most likely you've heard of us. Maybe you're following us on our podcast. Maybe you're in our private or public Facebook group or some other medium where you've consumed some of our content, stuff like that. And you probably know who Elon and myself are. If you don't, then Satori Prime is a company that's been around about 7.5 years. For the last 2.5, 3 of those years, we really switched our focus and primarily became a personal development and spiritual development company. We have clients and students all over the world. We were just a few months back speaking in Romania, which was a really amazing experience. I'm leaving this weekend to go to Austin to speak at an entrepreneurial event with a few hundred people. Have another event back here in San Diego when I get back to actually speak to cancer researchers. So we really run the gamut of the type of people that we work with, from stay-at-home moms, like this one, soon to be stay-at-home mom.
Except for
the constantly being working right. I just mean we're both going to be stay-at-home parents very shortly. To really working with like CEOs and executive types and stuff like that. My brother and I, obviously he's not here, Elon and myself, we have been steeped in the world of personal development for about 16 years. I went through a really radical transformation at 19 years old, dealing with depression and sadness and a lot of anxiety for about 7 of those years. Had what some would call an awakening experience. And it's one of the reasons we call the company Satori Prime. Satori actually means a moment of enlightenment. So if you're here, we assume that you know something about us, and you also want to learn how it is that we coach. And this is really an avenue for you guys to get a sense of what it is that we do with our students. So we're gonna open it up right now to questions from you guys about any area of life that you're working on that you would like some feedback and coaching on. And then Mandy and myself will do our absolute best to help you with creating the type of transitions and shifts and paradigm changes and transformations that we help our clients and students get every single day. What I would urge you, from having done this many, many times and seeing how people get the most amount of value from being here, you get the most amount of value if the question that you ask is very, very specific. If the question isn't specific and it's really general, like, for example, like what's the meaning of life, or how does somebody go about losing weight or make more money? It's really general, and while we probably can give you some insights on that, they won't be specific to you, and you'll just kind of get like, oh, that was interesting, but it wasn't really about me. So if you want something that's really specific to you, please make it as specific as possible, and we'll be as specific as possible with our guidance, coaching, and feedback for you guys. Other than that, the only other thing, you guys can start filling that out in the chat box over to the right-hand side. Other than that, as we kind of get closer to the end of this thing, we will tell you guys what's the easiest way to work with us if that's what you so choose. We would really urge you to only take that step if it feels good to be around us, if you feel like you would get value from working with us. And then once you've taken that step, I'll give you a little bit more information about how you can do that at the end of this webinar. Okay, so we're slotted for about 50 minutes here. Joe is asking what would be your #2 parenting book after The Conscious Parent. I'll let you take that one.
I've been reading a lot. Let's see, parenting books. I've been doing a lot more birthing books. So parenting books we haven't really dove into yet. There's a book that was highly recommended to us called Brain Rules that I personally have not read yet, but we had a couple friends refer it, and we actually got it gifted during our baby shower. So I'm excited to dive into that. Again, it's called Brain Rules. And we've been watching a lot of podcasts and documentary series on the development of children and also womb development. So understanding how it's all connected. And if you are planning on having a child one day, or if you're going through pregnancy with a partner, I would recommend really looking into Dr. Bruce Lipton. He has done a lot of work, pediatric work more recently. He became really well known for a book he wrote called The Biology of Belief, which has nothing to do with parenting or children, a lot to do. He is a doctor that used to work, I believe, with Stanford or Harvard. I'm going to misquote because I read the book a while ago, but the book is amazing. And he talks a lot about how our thoughts directly impact our reality. And he shows a lot of science behind that. So what he dives into is imprinting and how everything that we're experiencing, if you're a woman carrying a baby, all the experiences you're having, this is the baby's environment right now, right? The baby, when they all, like science talks about nature versus nurture. And when you're in the nurture, so your genetics are the nature, your environment is the nurture. And when you come into the environment piece, even though the baby's not born yet, it's experiencing the environment in the womb. So epigenetics talks a lot about what genes get turned on and what genes get turned off. So genetics is a really strong factor, but the environment impacts what gets turned on, what gets turned off. So for the baby that's in a womb, everything that the mom's experiencing that's kind of chronic, that's recurring, is what ends up turning genes on and off for babies. After the baby's born, growing up into childhood, from 1 to 3 years old is a very, very pertinent time. The baby is that baby from 1 to 3 years old is growing more, learning more than it would ever in any other 3-year period of its entire life. So those 3 years are super important for imprinting as well, the experiences the child's having. And even though the baby can't speak yet or say much, for those 3 years, it's picking up everything around it. So your energy, the energy of whatever you are placing the child in, experiences the baby's having, introducing novelty, keeping like a Just like a serene environment, things like that.
I'm laughing because it's like we talk about that like that's important at the prenatal and natal stages, but that's just important for life.
For life in general.
For life in general. I was thinking, I'm like, all that
just,
applies to being an adult 100%. Lisa, by the way, says she's businesses about epigenetic counseling as well, which is
so cool.
So cool, like right on the forefront.
Epigenetics is fascinating and something I'd love to dive into and learn a lot more about. But you're absolutely right, babe. It's all about life, and the only thing is we get that foundation. We have an opportunity to set children up with a really strong foundation, and that has to do with how they're going to perceive abundance, how they're going to perceive the ease of life, happiness, everything. We're setting that foundation for them, and they're looking to us constantly. So when you see a child, when there's a loud noise, when something if they fall, the first thing they do is look at the parent because they want to see your reaction. And if we can sort of support them in having a more conditioned, calmer response to being, I guess, less frantic and less reactive and more, I guess, in alignment, whatever that means for a child, we get an opportunity to set them up for a strong foundation for more success.
Awesome. Okay, so I know, Jared, you asked a question about books, right? So again, we're like kind of starting to drill down, and I'm going to give you an opportunity to drill down a little bit more on what you said. So you said, what book would you recommend? I said, give me an area. You said business motivation. And so give me a little bit of background. What business are you in? Why are you unmotivated?
You also said personal development.
Previously, and then I asked a question and said business motivation. Yeah, I mean, I would just want to find out, like, where's the lack of motivation coming from? Like, specifically, what are you working on? Why isn't it connecting for you? Why do you feel like you need motivation? I know there's like a habit to call people like Elon, myself, Tony Robbins, not that I'm comparing us to Tony or anything like that, just like as motivational speakers. And I personally find, well, that's good. You will get maybe inspired or lit up by these types of conversations. You might actually even feel more brain activity or feel deeper connection to people, stuff like that. Ultimately, if you're waking up in the morning and you're not motivated, there's probably something else going on, and it doesn't really matter how many YouTube clips you watch, how many books you read. That's not going to heal this motivational thing. It might like light a fire for like a little bit, and then the next thing comes and you're kind of facing that again. So I just want to get a little bit more background so I can be, again, specific with you. Brooks, so I'll skip that for now, Jared. Please feel free to chime in on that so I can give you a little bit more. Brooks, Guy, I was recently at your last live training with Elon, and I asked about clearing space from abundance. Okay, from abundance, or maybe you meant for abundance. Right after the discussion, my fiance and I received gifts from an engagement party. Although we had been able to anticipate, we didn't really see it coming. I was feeling in line with an abundance during the time going forward. However, recently, I just lost employees, and everyone around me has expressed lost belief in my ability. Like Elon said, abundance isn't linear. Can you offer guidance in experiencing abundance even when things seem to be lost? Great question, and it's funny because it's kind of like top of mind for us too, especially with like a baby coming and starting a family, and money. Like you said, it's not this linear thing that's constantly in growth, and actually seems to be more of a come and go type of situation. Look, I personally believe everything, and a lot of the questions many of you guys are asking above this as well is going to directly tie back into this. Everything comes back to self-worth, in my opinion, right? So like a lot of, I'm gonna let this truck go by that's driving by. Every single one of us saw our parents live their life in a certain way, right? And whether you agreed with it or you didn't agree with it, you kind of got that lineage passed down into you in some way, shape, or form. And that helped shape some ideas about the way that the world is. Ultimately, if you look at how everyone on the planet is operating and not necessarily good at receiving what they want, it seems to be that the primary issue that everyone's having is around self-worth, right? And I don't want to call it a problem. It's just like the way that we're programming ourselves seems to be around like some kind of dysfunction or inability to accept fully our self-worth. So something probably happened in that conversation that, created a new response in your system, like new information got in. What we often find is that people first have to get into a feeling of safety before like the system can actually receive some new information. So when it comes to self-worth, okay, like I just want you to get that every time there's a sensation in the body that comes up through the system, right? Like you see some kind of stimulus response situation, and then it creates this dissonance in the system or some kind of discomfort in the system. If that experience can't be fully present and felt through the body, you're basically saying to your subconscious is, I'm not wanting this experience. I'm not worthy of having this experience right now. And we keep sending the signal back down into the body of, I'm not worthy, I'm not worthy, I'm not worthy. Think about like how many sensations, whether it's heartbreak, loss of financial income, stuff like that, that puts us into this like free fall of feeling not safe, right? And when we feel not safe, we don't feel worthy, and it activates all those things that we felt when we were children, when we were just looking for that safety. So we're kind of playing, in essence, like a balancing game with what it is that we are and aren't willing to feel right now. So obviously something happened in that space, some kind of opening, right? Like there was something in the space, and somewhere in that conversation, you said, oh, that's not really important anymore. Or, wow, I can't believe I've been telling myself that story. Or, yeah, I can let that idea go. And the moment we let certain ideas go, it's like those ideas, that vibration is actually taking up space, right? It's like taking up space, and two things can't occupy the same space at the same time. When you cleared that out, it's like all this stuff started happening. That's like, whoa, where did that come from, right? It comes in like it's unexpected, because again, just like the universe abhors a vacuum. It's going to fill it in with something. So it's going to fill it in with something new until that response comes back in again, okay? And then it's like, it creates that dissonance again. So right now, it seems like you're going through this situation where things are uncertain, right? And some of that old programming is coming back in. And Brooks, like, here's the opportunity, right? Like that discomfort that you're currently probably experiencing, that's what gets to get felt. And if you kind of track that back, this discomfort, this feeling of safety, these sensations that we put around it, like worry, like as if worry is going to fix the situation, or blame or shame or guilt on ourselves that we're not doing something the right way, all that stuff blocks us from having the ability and experience of actually feeling what's going on in our system. And that what's going on in our system is just giving us feedback, right? As you start allowing for those feelings to come through again, and you can be present with them, they actually get reintegrated back into the system. And then it's like we almost have, do you guys know what like a governor or like a restrictor in a car is? So it's like certain cars can go a lot faster than they limit them to go. So usually they'll limit a car's speed to like about 155 miles per hour. That's not for all cars, but like, let's say like a high-end Mercedes-Benz or something like that. They'll put this chip in there that the moment you hit that speed, the car just won't go any faster. It'll limit the engine. So I like to think for myself that it's like, no matter how far I've made it in my personal development journey, no matter how aware I become or present I become, it's like when you have a breakthrough, it feels amazing, right? It's like the walls were here and suddenly you just push them way, way out. And that feeling that like, oh my God, this feels so good. That feeling that everyone's after, that feeling is of creating space in your life again. Suddenly you're like, oh man, I can move. I can see choices. I can see options. Like you uncovered some kind of blind spot. Ultimately though, now you're like, okay, great. I'm comfortable moving forward. Let's take some action here, right? You start taking action. Inevitably, you're going to find that wall again. You're going to find the limitations. You're going to find that governor, so to speak. And when that governor kicks in, what seems to happen is that same response is there. Like that same fear or that same, I'm not worthy, right? But it's like, it's the same, but it's different. Because at this point in time, it's like you've already learned the lessons that were back there. Now you're learning lessons over here, but that sensation comes through again. And then people go like, man, didn't I do this already? Didn't I heal this already? Didn't I experience this already? And you just kind of met that next governor, right? Like the people who are, in my experience, the people who are getting ahead, so to speak, in life, the people who are successful are not the people who are avoiding the structure of that wall or that governor. They're actually quite motivated and looking for it all the time. Like, I'll be honest, like for me right now, I'm not as present as I could be. The last week and a half of my life has brought in a lot of, so much beauty. Like, honestly, we've had incredible experiences between our birthdays and the engagement and stuff like that. There's other stuff going on that's causing discomfort in my system, like an uneasiness and stress, and all that kind of stuff, just like what you're expressing now, right? And it's amazing. What always just fascinates me is how when that frequency internally shifts, how the external world will just align with that. It's like the experience of the world just becomes a little bit darker, a little bit more challenging, you know, like all those different kinds of things come in. And I'm not trying to shift that. That's what I want to point to. Because ultimately what most people try to do is they're like, uh-oh, something's not working. They're like, how do I change my externalities now so that I can feel safe again? So it's like something goes wrong. We look out here, we say, well, that changed the reason I don't feel good, which is really not the truth. That's an illusion. And then we say, well, if that changed and that's why I don't feel good, if I change it, then I'll feel good again. And what you're really seeking is that feeling of safety again. I just want to feel safe again. Again, no new information can come in until we feel safe, right? So it's very logical. It just doesn't work very well. The other opportunity now is to go through these experiences and actually fully embrace the discomfort that's in the body. Like not judge it or make it wrong or do the things that we normally do, like this is inconvenient right now, or I can't be with this right now. It's actually taking the time to kind of slow down, quiet down, meditate, or whatever kind of practice you might have that allows you to be more present and just be with this discomfort. And then I'll say one more thing and then I'll let Mandy chime in on it if she likes. You know, like when we put, we need food, right? Like we need food in our body and the food gives us energy, like there's sustenance. Now, if you were to, not to get graphic on anybody here, but if you were to get like constipated and you can't pass the food, like everything in the system has to come out, right? Like nothing you've ever put in your body doesn't come out. But if you were to get constipated and the food stayed in your body and it couldn't metabolize properly, eventually that food is actually going to rot. It's actually why eating red meat in big amounts is not that healthy for you, because it rots very quickly and it actually takes your body nearly 48 hours to process red meat. So technically the red meat is actually rotting in your body and building bacteria and all these other things while it's in your body. Now your body has to fight that off also. So I'm not saying be vegan or anything like that. I'm just pointing at it like an example. With energy, with sensation, with feelings, it's kind of the same thing. We're experiencing a buildup of energy in the body. And when it has nowhere to go because we're tightening, we're contracting, we're not allowing, it's kind of the same idea. It sits in there and it starts becoming poisonous. It's what Wayne Dyer used to call, you know, dis-ease. It's because the energy is not moving. So what the energy wants is your attention. It wants your attention like a little kid would want your attention, right? Like this little baby is going to want our attention. If it doesn't get our attention, it's going to start feeling unworthy. It's going to start feeling undernourished. It's going to start contracting and looking for other ways to receive safety from its environment because of what it's programmed to receive safety from is suddenly not giving it safety. And this is kind of the same thing with ourselves, right? When we're children, our parents are the way that we get soothed. As we age, what most adults don't learn is self-soothing. They don't learn how to be with themselves. They don't upgrade their conversations and sensations around safety, and they keep dealing with those same feelings since they were young, and they're just unprocessed, unintegrated feelings. So as we sit with these sensations, we can actually reintegrate them back into the body. And what that means is that once a sensation is integrated in the body, when it comes up again, it doesn't create that panic in the system because now the system's integrated it. And your mind isn't going to create all those judgments and assessments and try to fix the externals and do all the things. So in short, or in very long, I should say, the way that for a lot of you guys, you ask questions about self-worth, right? It really all comes back to that. You want to upgrade your unconscious beliefs around self-worth. Starting to, I don't like using the word processing your feelings because processing is like what a psychiatrist might do with you, which is like, let's understand why you feel that way. And while that might be insightful, it's not going to change the fact that that feeling is in your body and that if it's unintegrated, that you're going to be judging it and not being present with it, making it wrong and not allowing it for it to fully metabolize. So, I mean, I'm sure you could speak to it from your own experience too.
I can say that I, feeling lost and trying to allow abundance in is something that life gave me a lot of practice with. A couple things that I came to mind right away. One is, I think we think of abundance in terms of receiving constantly. And the truth is abundance is an energy. So the embodying abundance really means watching it come and go and not having a visceral reaction to it. Even when we're receiving a lot of it, not feeling like, oh, I have to hold on to this because it might go away. And when it leaves, to be like, that's okay because more is coming in, and you trust wholeheartedly that there is more coming in a way that like you can try to figure it out, and then you're going to mess up the process that it's going to come, because the universe always has a better way. And when we're sitting here trying to fabricate with our little human mind the things that we know versus the infinite possibilities that actually exist, we end up getting in the way of our own abundance, because we're trying to figure it out, and the universe is like, hey, I'm trying to deliver this to you, and you're just like putting up these blocks because you want it to come a certain way. So that's one thing. The other thing is, I recommend reading The Surrender Experiment. For me, it helped a lot when I was going through challenging times. It's by Michael Singer. And the concept of surrender is I think, kind of goes hand in hand with the ability to allow that frequency to come into your life. I can say, is it okay if I share the story about Blue?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
well, I just before you do that, I just want to point to, like, for all you guys, you know, and if you look back at any point in time, any point of challenging time in your life, well, let me back up one step. They say that comedy is tragedy plus time equals comedy, right? So tragedy plus time equals comedy. And if you look at, like, your situations in your own life, any challenging period of time, enough time goes by, and in the moment you're like, oh my God, I can't believe this has to happen to me. Like, why is this happening right now, right? And then given enough time, you look back at that moment, you're like, oh my God, thank God that happened. And if your experience of life has consistently been so that by looking back at things, you're grateful, but in the moment is difficult, my assertion is bring that gratitude into the present moment. Like, what would it feel like to look back at this moment a year from now, 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now, and have that feeling of, oh, thank you. Oh my God, it helped me grow. It helped me become the person I am today. It's why I'm successful. It's why I have these kind of relationships. It's why I have the health that I have right now. It's why I have the understandings and the wisdom that I have right now, right? Because, like, it's so easy to focus on what's in front of you right now and be upset about it. The truth is, like, what's in front of you is what's in front of you. There's very little you could do right now in this moment to completely shift that, and worry certainly is not going to do that. So I think, like, this is actually a fantastic example of something like that.
So this will connect also to, Lisa, what you wrote, struggling with being decisive and trusting my gut as I dive into developing marketing, et cetera, in my business. So this will kind of connect to both of you, both your, I guess, struggles. Within surrender, there's an opportunity to get out of the way of what life has in store for us, right? And so I'll share a quick story of how that unfolded for me, and it's a pretty miraculous story. So my dog, our dog now, Blue, he's a beautiful blue-nosed pit bull. He has had a series of 7 surgeries over the course of his life, and he is 7 years old. So his surgeries have totaled, I think, in over $60,000. So I could have had a really nice car, or, you know, put our guy through college, but my dog had a lot of that in store. So this happened. The last surgery I had was a few years ago. I had already been paying off a series of surgeries. So the last time it happened, I had just quit my job that was like physically making me sick. I was co-founder of a digital marketing agency. I would go into work so stressed every single day, and it was a business that I started with someone. It was not in alignment with me. I would feel my body having this visceral reaction of high stress constantly. My heart was beating fast. I was getting sick constantly. Like, everything that I stand for in terms of my holistic lifestyle and health went out the window, because I just became this hard-headed, determined person to drive and make a successful business, even though my body was screaming, don't do it. So unfortunately, life intervened, and I guess I'll tell a little bit of longer version. Life intervened. I ended up fainting at a train station. Ambulance was called. Someone came and helped me, and all of this series of events happened to finally. Life was basically saying, how much further are you going to go with this? And at that point, I was like, okay, I'm done. I surrender. I don't know where I'm going. I had no backup plan. I had no financial backup. I knew I needed to get a job right away. So I split from my business partner. I worked another 4 weeks. 2 weeks after I gave my business partner my notice, my dog got sick again. He needed surgery, and I knew I did not have it. The estimate they gave me was $8,000. I wasn't even close. I was already in debt. I was still paying off his last surgeries. And I remember sitting with the vet. They handed me the paper and they said, you need to sign this and give us a deposit for, let's say, like, I don't know, it was like a couple $1,000s. Or the option is he will die. If he has a surgery, he survives. If he doesn't, he dies. And I know a lot of people with a pet, they may be like, it's a pet, you know, I'm not going to spend that much money. And I just couldn't do it. Everything in my body was like, and this is what I was thinking. I was like, if I won the lotto the next day, I would feel like crap forever because I decided to put my dog down versus knowing in my heart that it wasn't what I wanted to do or felt it was the right thing to do, and somehow trust that something would unfold. And people thought it was crazy. Like my dad at the time was just like, you spent so much money on this dog, don't do it again, you know? And I couldn't, my heart was just screaming, you have to do this. So I remember looking at the paper, signing it, and he went into surgery. I pulled every credit card I had, every ounce of little bit of savings that I had, everything that I had went, and I was flat broke. And he ended up being in the emergency for 7 days because it was his 7th surgery, and he was like a high risk case, so he needed to be in intensive care for a while. So every day I would go in and a new balance was due. And it was like maybe the 3rd day, and this was it. I literally had 2 credit cards that I knew were going to get maxed out to pay the exact amount that they needed in order to keep him there to continue treatment the following day. I knew I had nothing else. The next day was going to come, and I had no idea where I was going to get payment to be able to keep him in for as long as he needed treatment. So at that point, and this is why I brought up the surrender experiment, I was reading that book at the time, and it really, really helped with my mentality. It was the first time in my life, I put my hands up in the air and I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm doing, but this is the only thing. Like I'm continuing doing what feels right in my heart, and this is the next step I could take, and I have no idea where the next step is going to come from. So I put 2 credit cards down. They split the payment for that day. And then I sat down in the waiting room to go. I was waiting for them to allow me to go see him. And I sat in the waiting room, and I literally was repeating in my head, I trust, I trust, I trust, I trust, I trust. I just kept repeating that. This older woman comes up to me and she goes, excuse me, what's wrong with your dog? And I told her the story. I'm like, he's had many surgeries. He's in intensive care right now. Blah, 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 blah. I assumed she worked at the hospital. And she goes, do you mind coming to meet my husband? And I was like, okay, it's kind of strange. So I walk with this woman, never met her before. She introduces me to her husband, and they talk amongst themselves a little bit, and then they come back to me and they say, our dog has had cancer, and we realize how expensive treatment is here. We've been wanting to help somebody with their pet bills because we know, I get so emotional every time I tell this story, because we know how hard it is and how expensive it is to take care, to be able to pay for pet bills, and we want to help you. And she said, I saw you standing there, and I knew you're the person we wanted to help, and I saw you paying on multiple cards, and I didn't even notice her I didn't even notice she was standing next to me when I was doing all of that at the register. So she goes, okay, well, we're gonna, let me just talk to my husband. We'll come back to you. They asked me, like, how much have I spent so far? I told them $5,000. So I think I told them 8,000 or something like that. And the whole total was going to be, I was already going over the total because he was staying there extra days. So I come back, and then she comes back over and she hands me a check for $5,000. A complete stranger hands me a check for $5,000. And it ended up being exactly enough to complete his treatment all the way through. And I couldn't, that is not something that you can call a coincidence. You know, that is something that, like, things had to be fabricated to happen at exactly the right time, to be in the right place at the perfect moment. And for me to have been sitting there just repeating in my head, I trust, I mean, there's literally, the universe sent an angel by my side that was like, and now she learned her lesson. She's ready. She's ready to receive. Because I was in such an open state of like, I don't know. And because of that, our beautiful dog who's snoring right next to us is still here today. And he has taught me, I call him my angel because he has taught me so much in terms of trusting. So that's what I wanted to share with you.
Yeah, and I think that's important. I love that story. And there's like a whole other thing to it. But anyway, like, you know, the bottom line is kind of going back to what you said, Brooks, and really what everyone's asking here, and we can touch upon some of the other ones more specifically for like Marcia, is that when we think of success or achievement in a linear way, it's like, then it's all on us. Here's what I have to do. Here's what I get to create. And that stuff is all well and good. I'm not promoting to not take action based on what feels in alignment with you. What I'm saying is that the universe doesn't seem to work that way when you open yourself up to abundance energy. And honestly, guys, it's not like, this is going to be funny to say, but manifestation and abundance, even though we have classes called the Abundance and Manifestation Masterclasses, are not actually things that you need to learn. Because as a human in this dimensional reality, you can't help yourself. You know, if you don't have money, guess what? You have an abundance of no money. You know, if you're not healthy, then you have abundance of no health. Like you have a lot of that thing, right? You're manifesting that thing, but there's a frequency that you're carrying, and that energy is what's attracting things to you or not, right? Or so it's like, it tends to be that the thing that we avoid the most is the thing that we experience the most, right? Science too, like I usually talk about like this scientific study that they give people electric shocks, and then they'll give them the first one, put them in a chair, say, we're going to give you a bunch more. But as we go about this test, we're going to continue to give you a stronger shock. The only option we're going to give you is that we can give you the strongest shock first. And in overwhelming numbers, people will take that strongest shock first. And the reason that they will take that is because the first shock creates anxiety in the system, right? What does the system want to do? The system wants to relieve anxiety. And what your subconscious has learned is by getting the outcome that you expected, it relieves that anxiety. So if you're in a relationship or in a business that's not working or anything like that, that anxiety you're carrying around is actually inevitably pulling that future towards you, right? So it's like if you're in a relationship and you think that they're going to leave you, and you can think, oh my God, I hope they don't leave me. I hope they don't leave me. What you will actually do, because your quickest path to alleviating that anxiety is to actually have them leave you. Your system will put things in motion and create certain energies that will ultimately usually lead to that state, right? So that's kind of what we're talking about is, okay, fine. You know, you're not going to defeat anxiety by going, no more anxiety. Like, I'm not going to experience anxiety anymore. Like that, I don't care how many classes you take or who you go listen to or what videos you watch or what motivation you get. If there's a stimulus in your environment that's creating anxiety in your system, there is not mental capacity enough in this world to stop that process from happening. So your option is to get present with this anxiety, because this feeling of lack of safety is very young feeling. It's the thing that you felt when you were a kid and you're like, Mom, please help me, right? So imagine you coming to like your mother going, please help me. And the mom being like, get away from me. Mom's got to smoke a cigarette or drink Jane Bean or whatever the hell, you know, your mom did. My mom didn't do any of those things. So I don't know why I'm using those examples, but I am. You know, and the opportunity is to be like, oh, hi, sweetheart. Yeah, okay, you're hurt right now. And just like really being with that and starting to bring in those feelings of safety back into the system, starting to let your system know that it's okay. It's okay to feel these things. You're not going to defeat these things by taking them head on. It's just kind of what works. So I wanted to create like a quick distinction for you guys here because Marcia, you said, I would like to get insight why I cannot seem to receive in relationships. So we're kind of like,
it's exactly like abundance.
Yeah, we're talking about it, right? Because really everything that you're attracting back into your life is coming from this. And I'll create a distinction here in just 1 second for you guys. But like, you know, with that receiving in relationships, for instance, or with abundance, wealth creation, stuff like that, you might suddenly have an outburst of just creating a lot of money. Okay, so for like the last few years, we've created a lot of money. And then there's like an unconscious number in your head that when you hit that number, your system actually goes into a bit of a panic. Like your system can't hold that much energy, because money, abundance, it's just energy, right? Like the physical manifestation, which is going away, by the way, with cryptocurrency and digital currencies and all this kind of stuff. Like the physical manifestation of money is even going away. It's just it's an energy, it's an idea, and we've had different representations for it over time. Your self-worth is an idea, and we have representations for it over time, like a ring, right? Or like a spouse. These are just symbols. They're tokens of this energy that we're talking about. So the distinction I want to create for you guys to create some ease in your system is a distinction between responsibility and blame. So this is something that we teach in our 100-day masterclass. If you're interested in that, again, I'll talk to you a little bit more about how to come and work with us in these kind of curriculums, if you like, in a little bit. But one of the things that we teach is to create this distinction between responsibility and blame. And why do we teach this? Is because when we say something is distinct from something else, what it alludes to is that in society, we have a collapse between these two systems. So if you look at society as a whole, oftentimes when we say who's responsible, what we're actually asking is who's to blame, okay? And this you can turn on yourself also when you say like, man, did I create that? It's like, am I to blame for this? And when we talk about blame, I don't know about you guys, but I don't sit here and go like, ooh, blame, that's good. I want that. I want to blame myself for things. That feels really good. When we are talking about the energy of blame, we're like, no. Keep that away from me. So when responsibility and blame are collapsed, what ends up happening is the things that we could be taking responsibility for, we don't, because we think we're being blamed. And then we say, wait, get that away from me. That's not what I want. So responsibility is super powerful. Our definition for responsibility is your willingness to be at the source of what's happening, specifically in your experience. Because it's like you can only be responsible for your personal experience of how things are coming. Now, if you shift the energy inside of you, right, to something of like, wow, I'm at the source of this, it means that no matter what's happening in your life, you're at least willing to take a look at through the paradigm lens of saying, how did I create this? You know, what about me? What is it in my energy right now? What is it that I'm speaking? How is it that I'm moving? How is it that I'm emoting that's creating this circumstance right now? The moment you collapse blame on there, you don't want to do it. And if you want to stick exactly where you are, if you want to make no progress in life, you want to be unmotivated, you want to feel like you're worthless and all those things, then use blame. Use blame, use guilt, use shame, use all those things. And that's like it's the same as putting a nail in your foot and trying to move forward. And I know if you guys look out into the way society is for the most part, like the political arena is a great example of this. Something goes wrong, they look for who's to blame. They may even find who's to blame. It doesn't ultimately change anything in our society. It doesn't change anything in the quality of our lives. So it's kind of the same thing over here. If you're going to shame yourself because suddenly you have a lack of employees, or you're going to shame yourself because suddenly, you know, the person you're with may have left you or something like that, and that's where you go from as a means to try to heal yourself, it's like, by punishing myself, I'm going to learn a lesson. And the truth is, you don't learn the lesson. You just actually make that wound deeper, and you cycle and loop back into that energy over and over and over again, and you make practically no headway at all, if any at all. So it's really effective to start creating a separation between these two. And then let's go into Marcy's question, you know, why you can't seem to receive in relationships. So it's the same thing like with money, right? There's some kind of trigger there around not feeling worthy enough of some kind of love. If you look at the relationship between your parents and yourself, you may get a lot of clarity as to why that is, okay? So I'll go through it super, super fast. You can write this down if you want, if you have a pen and paper next to you. Your identity has 3 legs, right? Like a chair can't stand without 3 legs. So you have like a stool. A stool has to have at least 3 legs in order to stand. Your identity is kind of built on the same thing. And your identity is usually built on what you saw your mother make your father wrong for. So if like your mom thought your dad needed to do this some other way, she's making him wrong. And if you witnessed that, it doesn't even mean that's what she was doing. It means that's how you interpreted it. So whatever your mom was making your dad wrong for, that's one leg of your identity. Whatever you saw your dad making your mom wrong for, that's the second part of your identity. And then you have what you made them both wrong for. And that's the third part of your identity. What you made them both wrong for tends to be what you make the whole world wrong for. So if you make your parents wrong for they didn't love me the right way, or they didn't love me enough of something, when you start getting into relationships, this is going to naturally come forth, and it's going to be something for you to work through, because those emotions are going to come back. suddenly he's not treating you the way that you thought you needed to be treated. He's not giving you love the way you thought you needed to be given love. And that wound really goes back all the way back to your childhood. When you experience those things, it really has nothing to do with that person. And that's why when that next man comes into your life and that next man comes into your life and you're like, oh my God, all these men keep hurting me. Well, it's because they're just there as representatives. They're an archetype of a man or a woman. I don't want to specifically use men here because we all have this going on. And that wound is being activated. That energy is coming up through the system. But when we haven't learned to be with that energy and we make it wrong, we push it back down, we guilt it, we shame it, all the things that we're talking about here, again, it just starts looping through the system. It's trying to find a way to metabolize and move out. If it doesn't, we get that dis-ease in the body, right? And eventually that abruptly comes into your physical manifestation of reality. And before you know it, they're no longer with you because you're pushing them away because you don't feel like you're getting what you want. So you don't give them what they want, so on and so forth. Yeah, please go ahead. Yeah.
So similar to what Guy is saying in terms of the man, let's say in your situation, you know, the man, you get the same type of men that reoccur in your life. For me, with Blues, our dog, with that experience, it took 7 surgeries for me to realize that, oh my God, I'm recreating the same exact thing, or I was each time after a surgery would happen, I would go into extreme scarcity, meaning I would be like, oh, I just spent so much money on this surgery, so I got to cut back on this. I got to start saving this. I got to figure out how to make money. And all of that was coming from scarcity. It wasn't coming from an abundant feeling of, oh, that's okay. I spent this amount here, but it's going to come to me, and I'm ready to take the opportunity when it comes to me. It was quite the opposite. And every single time it took me 7 surgeries to learn that lesson. And this poor dog has been trying to teach me that lesson this entire time. And when I figured it out, I was like, oh my God, it was me. I've been recreating the same exact situation. So it's, you know, make your life a lot easier and learn the first time.
Yeah. You know, personally, I think this is why Eli and I are so adamant about having the most, I don't want to say the most right, because there's nothing right in this world. It's like the people who I know who tend to be the most balanced have certain practices in place. And one of them is moments of introspection, both at least in the morning and at nighttime. Because when we slow down and we quiet ourselves down, you know, a lot of people are looking for constant stimulus, because when you have constant stimulus in your life, chances are these things that come up through the system naturally when we quiet ourselves down and slow ourselves down don't really have an opportunity to arise. But then you put the same people who are like seeming to live, you know, the life and are always stimulated and always traveling over here and doing this and doing that, you put them into a quiet space and they literally cannot be with themselves because these things start to arise through the system. So Joe, you mentioned, you know, you've had a lot of breakthroughs in our programs, and now you're noticing, which is awesome. I know, like, it's like, oh shit, you're noticing this tension around your heart, right? And I get that too. Like when I get tense, I get very tense over here. So a few things that have helped me tremendously is having quiet meditation every single day and focusing on breath. You know, when we're tight, right? Like, just imagine like I'm in front of you right now and I start getting really aggressive and I start coming into your space and I get like this. And even now, if you're really tuned into your system, that may have caused a response in your system. So you're getting contracted, right? Like your system's starting to get itself in a defensive posture. And that doesn't tend to work very, very well. So our energy system's like doing the same thing. It's like this tightening when we're feeling, again, unsafe. And there's really nothing, Joe, that you have to do more than just keep noticing how that tension is there. That's really it. I know it seems so mundane, but it's like when you're quiet, you're breathing. So the things that I always remind myself is, number one, breathe. Because if you're tight or you're tense, chances are you're probably forgetting to breathe. And if you're not breathing, you're literally not moving energy in and out of the body. The second one is to move, like even if it's just like a simple sway, right? Just sway the body, go walk around the block, go do something to move the body, do some push-ups, some squats, something, move your body to move the energy. And then the last one is just put awareness on that part of the body that's calling for attention. If you start doing that, you're creating an invitation for actually more energy to move through the system. And guys, like, here's the thing, you know, most people, when they ask us questions, they want an answer because they want to ultimately feel good again. And I'm on board with that. Like, I'm all for that. For us today, the focus is what does it look like to live in alignment? You know, ask yourself that question. Like Jared was asking about his business and how to motivate people. And it's not like I don't want to answer those questions. It's just like, you know, give them a motivational video. But that's not the thing. It's like if they're not motivated, then
the deep core essence of it.
If people are motivated in the workplace, guess what? They don't want to be in the workplace.
There's something that's a lack of alignment.
A lack of alignment for them. They don't want to be there, whether it's because of how they're being communicated to, maybe there's a low team morale, or maybe it's just in general, they don't want to be doing the job that they're doing, which is obviously very, very common in our world. When you're doing what's in alignment, what's on purpose for you, there's no question of motivation. I never have to wake up, Joe, in 7.5 years, and I'm not making it right or wrong. I'm just pointing to that stuff. It's like, you're not going to put like a system in place. Well, if I just manipulate them with this word, they're suddenly going to be motivated. No, there's a reason that they come into that space and feel unmotivated. You know, Elon and I, we love what we do. We love working with you guys. We love sharing stuff like this. We love being on webinars. We love going to speak on stages. We love these things. I don't have to wake up in Monday morning and be like, all right, guy, let's do it. Let's motivate ourselves. Let's get out of bed. It's none of that. I legitimately look forward to my daily practices. I look forward to our time together. I look forward to what we keep producing and creating as an organization. And because of that, it's not really a question. That's why when you say, what do I do to motivate my employees? I don't do anything, because they're here because they want to be here. You know,
finding people that are in alignment with what you're doing. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a really big part of it. And then go ahead, please.
I want to touch on what CJ said. You said you tend to get the reverse results, meaning in regards to the law of attraction. So a couple things. One, I really like the way Guy and Elon phrased the law of attraction, and they change it a little bit to the law of allowance. I think that's a really important piece, because what Guy was saying before is, it's not that we don't know how to manifest things in our lives. We're manifesting things constantly. It's just we end up manifesting things we don't necessarily want, because that's where our attention goes. And that's what we end up allowing, because that's what our attention becomes so focused on. So thinking about it in terms of allowing things to come into your life versus attracting, it's already there. You don't need to, it's a simpler approach. You don't need to attract anything. It's literally in front of you. It's a matter of getting out of the way and relaxing and not constricting, like thinking about the tension that you carry in your body, relaxing into that to let things come into your life. The other piece is, I shared with you a really big success story, but I didn't share with you all the hundreds of other stories where I had the exact reverse results, right? And for me, it's a practice. Like, you can't go to the gym and just come out ripped one day. You're building your muscles over time. And it's the same exact thing with staying aligned in a certain energy and frequency, and then eventually being able to embody those frequencies. You will get challenged, and you'll have days where you don't feel like going to the gym to work out, or you get really sick and you're wiped out for a week, or anything that life throws at you that kind of takes you out of alignment, that pulls you out of that positive energy. And it's not so much that like you get pulled out and you're like, oh crap, now I gotta start over. It's just more like, okay, I'm paying attention. Something just needs to shift, and I'm paying attention to what life is trying to tell me right now, and just being curious about maybe what needs to change in your life, what is out of alignment that can be maybe nudged back into a more of an aligned state. And I think when you really pay attention to when your heart is telling you to do something and you have the courage to do it, even if it doesn't make sense, even if you feel like you're a crazy person, to take that step to do it will get you the rewards, the allowance, the rewards that the universe is ready to give you. And same goes on the opposite end. When you're going to do something that logically makes perfect sense, like maybe it's in business or whatever, relationships, finances, whatever, it makes perfect sense in your mind. You're like, oh, this is the next logical step, but your heart is screaming no. Can you have the courage to not do the thing that seems like it's the right thing to do? And when you do that, the universe will always show you the reason that happened, but it's not going to be instantaneously. You're going to see that later on. But that's where the trust piece comes in. Can you trust with everything that you have, that your body is so intelligent, and it is the biggest communicator between you and divinity, right? emotions are speaking to you. Your body, your physical body is speaking to you. Sometimes it's through physical pain and sometimes it's through emotional pain, but can you pay attention to what it's saying and then have the courage to follow it? I think when you attain that courage, that's when you start allowing and you allow things to come in.
Yeah, it's amazing. I often think that people give up right before the true breakthrough would happen, right? So it's like, for me, transformation is a moment by moment thing. Like, to actually have an insight that changes your life doesn't take very much, right? Because usually a transformative insight is like, okay, I'm going to start doing that every day, or I'm going to stop doing that every day. I'm going to stop talking to that person, or I'm going to start doing whatever it is, right? Like, that's transformation. Implementation is a whole different thing, right? Like, a lot of people ask us, like, how do I find what I'm passionate about? How do I find what I'm passionate about? And it's not something that comes and just bops you on the head. It just doesn't. You don't wake up one day and go, oh, guitar. Like, it doesn't work that way. Its passion is developed like anything else. Transformation, awareness, enlightenment is developed like anything else. I'm all for weekend retreats, plant medicine work. I know Brent asked about ayahuasca, but that's a little bit off topic for this particular. Yeah, very deep dive in a different direction, right? A little off topic for this conversation. I'm all for those things because they will elicit a different response in the body that gives you an opening to experience some new frequencies, new ideas, things like that. And that's amazing. But if you think you're going to go from a Friday to Sunday and wake up on Monday and like all the things that you learned are suddenly magically in your life right away, it takes something, because the thing that's not that is going to show up. Like, here's what I mean by that. If I have a breakthrough around my self-expression and I realize that I'm legitimately not saying to people what my needs are. I'm not describing the things that are important to me in my life. And I'm suddenly like, oh my God, like, that would make a huge difference if I just started opening my mouth, right? When I wake up on Monday after I go through that program and I'm like, oh my God, I'm very so self-expressed. What shows up is everywhere that I'm not self-expressed. I look at my relationship with my mom, I'm like, oh shit, I haven't told her this. I look at my relationship with my dad, oh my God. I look at my health, I look at all these things. And suddenly it's like, oh my God, look at all these areas where I'm not self-expressed. So the breakthrough actually creates the breakdown. And that's where a lot of people start freaking out, because they're like, did I just have that breakthrough? Well, you did, but now the breakthrough is showing you where you're not in alignment with that, where that's not in integrity, where you haven't built a foundation. And that's where the development process comes in place. So one of the things that we teach in our 100-day masterclass, which I'll talk to you guys here about in just a minute, is this idea of a network feedback loop, okay? And the feedback loop is a way that humans automatically relate to the way that they're experiencing reality, okay? So I want you guys to get that when you meet somebody or you shake their hands and you start saying hello, the way that humans operate with one another is we upload and download information to each other through storytelling, through sharing, mediums like this, through communication. And what we're telling each other through these stories is these like subconscious little lessons. It's like, here's what guy likes, here's what he doesn't like, here's what you can say, here's what you can't say. It's all kind of wrapped up into these really beautiful stories. Now, what ends up happening is we are actually responsible for training our environment, because nobody knows who you are until you open your mouth and say something about yourself, right? Or you show up a certain way, or you act a certain way, and then people are like, oh yeah, he's like that, right? And now we're training our environment, and then humans are really funny, because when we're done training our environment, what we do is we get at odds with our environment, and then we go, I'm not that way. And this is what keeps life interesting, by the way, because if we were all one way, life would be really boring. It would take the color out of life. Everything would be very gray. Like, the universe keeps unfolding because of these resistance energies, both within ourselves and outside ourselves. There's nothing wrong with these things logistically. It's just like how we're operating around them. So when you have like a transformative idea, right? Like before we were talking about the business and employees, and then people start having certain conversations about you. It's those conversations that people are having about you is that world that you've created. Now, if you have a transformative idea and you're like, hey, I'm going to be self-expressed, but you walk back into your environment and nobody knows you as a self-expressed person yet, because you haven't told them that you've had this, insight, this amazing awareness. You're like, hey, I know that I used to be that way, but this is what I see now, and this is what I'm committed to. If you haven't had that conversation with people in your life, then the feedback that you're getting from your network is the way that you used to be. And then it starts creating doubt in your system. You're like, maybe that didn't happen. Maybe that transformation didn't work.
You have to change people's perception of you. You're the only person that can do that.
Yeah. And it's not like changing, like forcing them or manipulating them. There are ways that we train people on how to have conversations with people that create an invitation for them to say, you know what, I could see that. That's awesome. And when they say that, they're basically, you're inviting them to take on this new perspective with you, be in alignment with who you are, with your new belief systems. And when the environment shifts, the feedback loop that you start getting from your network is in alignment with who you are. And that's one of the very like logistical things that you can practice through communication by actually creating a lot more alignment in your environment, so that it's much easier to step into transformation. Because when there's agreement for your transformation in your environment, shit's easy, right? This is why you hear a lot of people in like the network marketing space or business space say, hey, you know, take your 5 closest friends, take the average of their income, that's your income. There's truth to that, because that's the feedback loop that those 5 people are creating around you. If you alter that conversation, you alter that energy, then again, you can create upgrades in your life and in their lives as well. It's actually pretty easy and very logistical. I think we're both happy to stick around here for a little bit more answering questions, but I just want to honor people's time. So what I want to let you guys know is that if you've been following our work and you're enjoying this conversation and you want to work with us in a more curriculum-based type of environment, we do hold what we call our 100-day masterclass. It is the Access to Freedom. And the reason we call it Access to Freedom is because of the distinctions and the experiences that you're going to have in this coaching environment exactly give you the experience I was talking about. This is something to push out your walls. I mean, like miles and miles and miles and miles and miles away from you, so that the experience that you have here is freedom, is that you start understanding the certain mechanics of your brain and how they're creating blind spots and why those blind spots are taking choices away from you. So for example, if you're driving down the road in a car, obviously you're driving in a car, and there's a car in your blind spot, you know, whether or not you know that car is there, if you turn the vehicle into that lane, there's going to be an impact on your life. And that's what a lot of people are dealing with. It's just things that they haven't illuminated yet. And the moment that car is seen, you immediately have a different choice to make, right, about your circumstances, so to speak. So what we help you guys do over these 100 days is illuminate these blind spots through distinction technology that helps you understand the phenomenology of your brain. So I know there's a lot of big words, but ultimately what this does is it makes your brain aware of things that it's currently not aware of. And these are like actual rules and things that your brain is using right now on automatic pilot. And once you start becoming aware of them, you can't help yourself but see them. So this process is ontological in nature. It doesn't mean that you have to sit around, and I know Joe, maybe you could speak to it as well, or anybody else who's here who's been in our programs. It's not something that you have to like look at and think about and all this time. The moment that truth is revealed to you through your own experiences, you can't help but see it. And it just starts unraveling and showing you all these things in your life that you're like, holy shit, I could be taking a lot of action. It gives you a lot of your time back because you're not spending time in worry and anxiety and all these different things. And when you stop telling yourself these illusionary stories, suddenly you're sitting there. And for those of you guys who are like, I don't have enough time in the day, we are going to give you back a lot of your time. So you're going to have plenty of time to do whatever the hell it is that you want, because you're not going to be wasting it by mulling these things over and over again. So the way that we work in this program is we take a $99 application. It's a 100% risk-free application. So if you don't move forward with this program or any of our other programs, we'll refund that to you happily. The reason we do that is we just want to make sure that we have qualified people in this program, people who are ready to receive what we have to give them. And honestly, if you can't afford the $99 application, the chances are you can't afford the program either. The program is not wildly expensive. It's also not super cheap either. And if for whatever reason, either we decide that you're not a good fit for this program, but you still want to work with us, there are plenty of other programs that we can put you in. And that's the best way that we can give you a recommendation on where is appropriate for you to be based on looking at what you send us in the application. We actually do review these personally. Elon will review them as well and also send you back audios and videos so you guys can be in communication with us about potentially joining the program. And that's pretty much the next move. So if you are looking to take an application with us, let me just put this on the screen, and then we'll kind of continue on with the conversation that we're having here and look at if there's any more questions. So on your screen right now, a button should have popped up. There's another shortcut you can get there, and I'll drop it in the box too. You can apply here.
I just want to add that, you know, it's like you at some point in your life, you might find the answers that you're looking for or end up on the aligned path that you're looking for, but it could take a really long time. And it's really nice to have a supportive system of people that are able to help you and guide you. And it's not, what I love about the Access to Freedom program is it's not for any one thing in your life, because anything affects everything in your life. I think that's what we don't realize. You know, we're like, oh, I need to fix abundance, I need to fix relationships. But at the core level of whatever's going on in your life, it impacts every single part of your life. So it's beautiful because you end up having better relationships with your family and your friends and with your employees and everything in your life. It's a little ripple effect that goes out into so much more than you can imagine.
Yeah. And CJ, just to answer your question, we will see you in Austin, so that's awesome. I'm excited to meet you. We actually don't have any affiliation with them for these programs at all. So if you want to work with us, it's just come work with Satori Prime as its own organization. So I just want to just take you guys through what is covered during the 100-day and kind of the structure of it. So we have recorded trainings that go through these different distinction and phenomenological principles, so they can reveal that stuff to you. The other thing that you have is after you watch your recordings, you're going to have 2 coaches that are present with you guys to do additional calls. And what those are is to answer your questions. These are people we've certified who've been working with us for years and who have shown to be able to get results in their life. They're going to work with you guys to go over those distinctions, make sure that you get clear on everything. And you also have a personal one-on-one call as well. Then Elon and I will do about usually at least a minimum of 2 calls throughout the program. Again, just to make sure you guys are clear about the work, and the results people get in these master classes is absolutely tremendous. Okay, so again, it's 7 missions, or not, we call them missions, but it's like 7 different trainings over that 100-day period of time. We covered a few of them here, like the responsibility one. Obviously, we go, you know, yeah, this is like a touch and go. You know, you get a few minutes with you guys, so we can't go super deep. But just, you know, every one of these topics we discuss for a minimum of 2 to 2.5 hours, and then you have all the supplemental stuff that goes into it. So this is going to be like in your bones by the time you get out of the program, and we promise you that you're going to be in a completely different place than where you started, and it's going to be rather unexpected to you, the type of results that you get. So we cover things like we uncover these things. So we help you uncover like your shoulds, basically like the beliefs and stories and theories that you've been living under, certain principles that you've been living under as if they are true. And we get to investigate that, look at them and see if they're working for you. And if they're not, like how do you restructure things like that? We look at responsibility, like we mentioned here, and removing negativity. We cover empowering context, like how do you create a paradigm. So kind of like what I think it was Jared said before about the workspace, right? There's a certain paradigm he's operating out of, his employees are operating out of it. And once those stories have been unraveled, once that responsibility piece is in, you can start looking at generating and creating paradigms that actually empower you to take actions that are consistent with the results that you actually want. We mentioned the feedback loop here, so we talk about that in great depth and scientifically show you how your environment is altering the reality that you live in. We show you how to start taking action from those places, so how to systematically start taking action from those places. We make a really powerful distinction between making decisions and choosing in your life. I guarantee you, most likely you've never heard anything quite like that. And once you start realizing that you've never actually made a choice in your life, it's like alarming, and you start going like, holy shit, I can't believe that I've been deciding all those things. So it's a really powerful distinction there. And then finally, on the last training session, we actually give you what we call as our 90-day game plan. And this is how we systematically structure to create goals in our lives and how we reverse engineer so that within those 90 days, we're achieving the goals that we want. So that's pretty much the outlay of the 100-day masterclass. Again, if you do want to join that, satoriprime.com/masterclass, all one word, or just use the button there. Yeah, and I'm gonna look if there's any more questions, or if you guys have any questions about that, please let me know. Audrey said, investing in yourself is a shortcut like meditation. It takes some time and ultimately makes your life run more smoothly. Just so you guys know, Audrey's actually been working with us for a few years now. We love her to pieces, and she's actually one of the coaches that takes people through the 100-day masterclass. Joe Messina said, little testimonial, the 100-day brought my wife and I from the brink of divorce to It's like exceeding her expectations, and in her words, feeling like a family again.
That's so cute. Oh my goodness. That's amazing.
Thanks, Joe, for sharing that.
Wow.
Yeah. So I think, Bren, you got your answer questions. Michael Singer, yep, is the surrender experiment guy. Michael Singer also has a book called Untethered Soul. We highly recommend. Let's see, guys. This is kind of where we were. I'm gonna go on that one. Did anybody feel like we didn't touch upon something that they wanted us to touch upon? I'm just scrolling through the feed. Yeah, we touched on that one. And thanks, Lisa. Lisa also said, I've said it before, but working with you guys has changed my life. Okay, so why don't we do this, guys? We'll start wrapping up. What I'm going to do is I will show you a quick video. So I think about 8 or 9 minutes long. And these are just some people who've been at like an experience. This was one that Elon was at, and talking about just insights they gained from that experience. And some of these people have become our clients and stuff like that. We'll be here anyway, and this will just give you an opportunity to think on any questions. Also, for those of you guys that are ready to take an application, you can do that while the video is playing as well. So I will play that. We'll be here, and if there's any more questions, we will come back and we'll answer them at that time, okay? All right, enjoy this clip.
Something that you've taught me has really changed the relationship between me and my children, to the point where I need to give you some serious recognition for it. You suggested that we change 2 words, and they were the words have to get to. So instead of saying I have to cook dinner for my kids, or I have to play with them, or I have to take them to school, or now I have to put them to bed, I have followed your advice and changed those words from have to get to. And all of a sudden, my little human brain changes the entire energy around that task from something that feels like a chore to something that feels like a privilege. And it has actually changed the relationship with me and my kids, because not everything feels like such hard work anymore. I love them to bits, and thank you so much for making my relationship with my children so much better just from doing that one little thing.
There was something I wasn't forgiving someone about, and that someone is my father. I was holding on to something. I was holding a grudge against him. And basically, Elon taught me that he did the best he could with the information he had, and at the time. So, in my opinion, at first, I didn't see that. I couldn't see that. I just thought that he should have broke the cycle, and by me thinking that he should have broke the cycle, I was unable to see that he did the best that he could at the time with the information that he had. And by Elon simply sharing that story with me, it gave me the ability to let go and forgive my dad. So it was a major breakthrough for me. I actually feel lighter, and I know I'm going to feel even lighter once I get to go home and speak to my father.
Since I started following you guys back in 2016, not only has that had a profound impact on my life, but almost every single person that I've shared your content with, passed it on to people from Europe, the United States, Australia, where I live, they always write back to me telling me how it's impacted their life. And it's not just in one area. It touches them in business, it touches them in their relationships, it touches them in their relationship to themselves. So I think it was just about time that I said thank you from the bottom of my heart. What you have done for me and countless others is so freaking amazing. And I know that you're going to keep doing this work for probably the rest of your lives, or definitely for the rest of your lives, because it's in your blood. And for anybody who's considering the, I guess, possibility of working with Guy and Elon, consuming some of their content, all I can say is don't even think about it. Every second you're waiting is a second that you could be nourishing your mind, enriching your soul, and actually getting your machine that is you onto a path of creating the life that you really desire. And not just talking about things, but I'm talking about your state of being and the actual place you exist from in your life.
I come from old school way of thinking, especially where money's concerned. And today there was a really good breakthrough through something that Alon was teaching about the view of how we see money and how we see it in our lives. And when I first got into the business, I'm a Christian, and I got the message from the Lord that in His Word, He says, I'll give you the power to get wealth. Well, then Alon comes in the reinforcement of that, seeing that, you know, I was raised where it's okay, there's no shame in being poor. My parents came out of the Depression, and they taught us, you know, the ways, if you don't need it, don't buy it. And those kind of things held me in a trap of when it comes to money and my viewpoint of money. But that's all gone now, and I'm so grateful for the teaching that money is a byproduct. It's going to happen. It's going to happen effortlessly because of a different mindset, and that mindset is that it's not okay to be poor, but rather that money comes to me effortlessly because of the value that we're taught to give, and that because of value, that'll just happen. And I'm so grateful for that, and I just wanted to give a testimony about that and say how much I appreciate that in my life. It's a life change.
One of the things that I didn't realize was just how much what goes on in my head impacts me physically. It was obvious to me that I was holding on to something, so much so that in the last 3 or 4 days, and it was all about anxiety, it was about being here, meeting people, making sure that I was learning, not being home with the people I wanted to, and all of that was putting so much pressure on me that in my neck, for 3 days, I'd wake up every morning hurting. I even took a couple of pills thinking, you know, some Advil, thinking those things would get better. And amazingly, just going through that process with you, breathing, identifying it, understanding where it came from, it's gone. It went away that fast.
I have been in personal development for many, many years, and I'm very confident to say that I know a fair amount of what to do, what not to do to get connected with people. And even though Ilan was on stage, like literally he was above the group, he managed to connect with the people in the audience. And that's a massive, massive talent of his. And he is not someone that he isn't. He talks from the heart. He listens to what his audience is saying, and he anticipated. I'm sure he had a PowerPoint presentation in his mind, but it wasn't needed because he doesn't improvise, but he just listens, like I said, and then he just tells him, and I'm sure that he just gets something from wherever what he needs to send out. And at some points I was like, this is not him telling, this is him giving, and that was the biggest present of yesterday. And he was talking about beliefs, and throughout his session my belief grew and increased, and that was amazing of yesterday. So
you know, when you get to that point in the day where you've been focusing so hard on what everyone's saying and you're kind of running out of energy and you're getting tired, and then Ilan comes on stage and within like 3 or 4 minutes, right, I'm back, I'm with this, I'm in the zone, it's all good. And so some of the stuff that he shares, the way that he talks about it on stage is so powerful, and you can't put it into words until you experience it. And the reason that I feel it's so powerful is because it's so damn authentic. He's talking purely from the heart. I mean, that's how he lives his life, that's how he runs his business. And one of the things that really made me laugh is he's saying, if my heart isn't saying fuck yeah, then it's fuck no, I'm not doing it. And I was like, yes, I resonate with that, it's fantastic. So, you know, so much value from that, so much value from everything that he does.
How powerful our beliefs are. And when looking at our beliefs on the inside and seeing exactly what is the dialogue we have inside, what are we saying to ourselves, what are we saying to other, how that really reinforces our present reality. And I just found also when he asked people to come up and share what their inner dialogue was and what they're experiencing, especially in our online world. And his way of reframing them in order to think in a more positive way and more constructive way towards the impact they want to give and the goals they're going after, it was just gorgeous.
And especially Elan's presentation blew my mind. Like, Elan, he doesn't know it yet, but he's going to change my life.
Yeah.
Like, I just know it. And
it was exactly what I needed to hear, because I have been feeling this exact same way about money, struggling inside and trying to understand why it is that I feel that way. And all the takeaways and the ideas that he's given me, I know that it's only going to help me to just completely battle and overcome this problem that I've been having. So thank you so much, Elan. Appreciate it.
Thank you for your help. Thank you for what you do, what you bring to the community.
You're absolutely phenomenal, and I can't wait to see what comes next from you, and I can't wait to watch you at the next event. Thank you so much. Words can't explain how thankful I am.
Thank you very much, and for whoever is watching this, I hope to see you on one of his calls very, very soon.
I just want to say thank you so much for everything that you do, for you know, everyone that I know that attends your calls and your webinars, and for me personally as well. Thank you so much, my friend.
We love you very much.
All right. Cool, guys. Again, yeah, if you have any questions at all, now or in the future, feel free to contact either myself or Elan personally. It's either Guy or Elan, I-L-A-N, at satoriprime.com. Also, our support team is available to support you with anything you need, support@satoriprime.com. And again, if you are, so CJ, you took an application. We'll see if any other people got in there as well. Please go to satoriprime.com/masterclass to get yourself into the next 100-day masterclass. And with that said, guys, we love you very much. Thank you for being here today, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for making Mandy welcome.